heart that never left. Drake stepped off the bus, his feet hitting the familiar pavement of the street he once called home. In one hand, he carried a weathered duffel bag, a reminder of how far he'd come since leaving this town. In the other, a bouquet of flowers, carefully chosen. He glanced around, his eyes scanning the houses, and memories flooded back with each step. As he walked, he heard a familiar sound, a boy's laughter. Not too far away, a young boy, no older than 10, darted across a lawn, narrowly avoiding a flower bed. "Sorry, Mr. Hill. I promise I didn't mean to run over your plants," the boy called out, his voice light and full of life. "Yeah, little menace," came the gruff reply from Mr. Hill, the town's elderly but well-loved grouch. But even as he scolded the boy, a hint of a smile tugged at the old man's lips. It was a dance that played out often in this neighborhood, a harmless scolding followed by forgiveness, especially for a child with a heart like Jard. Jard, the name sent a pang through Drake's chest. He hadn't even made it to the end of the block yet, and already he was overwhelmed by memories of his best friend. That kid with the boundless energy, the one who always seemed to make the world a little brighter. Drake passed the spot where he and Jard had once buried a stray cat, the beloved pet of a little girl who lived nearby. Jard had taken the lead that day, comforting the heartbroken girl, even carving the cat's name into the makeshift tombstone they made. As Drake continued down the street, he saw the old lemonade stand they'd set up every summer. It wasn't just for fun. Jard had been the mastermind behind it, convincing the neighborhood kids to sell lemonade to raise money for voice lessons for a girl with an incredible singing talent. That was Jard, always thinking of others, always finding a way to make the world better. Drake smiled at the memory, but it quickly faded as he approached the cemetery at the edge of town. The place was quiet, peaceful, with the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. He crouched down, brushing some fallen leaves away from a headstone, and there it was, Jared's name etched into the stone. "I miss you, bro," Drake whispered, his voice barely audible. He placed the bouquet of flowers down, his hand resting on the cold stone for a moment longer than necessary. It had been 15 years since Jard passed away, struck by lightning on his way home from baseball practice. He had stayed late that day to help younger kids, as he always did. Jard had been the star player, but it was his heart, not his talent, that people remembered most. Drake sighed, his chest tight with the weight of memories. Jard had touched the lives of everyone in town. Funny, heartwarming, mischievous stories of him lived on in every corner of the place. He had left an imprint on the people here, a legacy of kindness that hadn't faded, even after all this time. As Drake stood up, the cemetery caretaker approached. "You know," the caretaker said, nodding toward Jared's grave, "there's always fresh flowers here. The town hasn't forgotten him. Even after 15 years, people still come by to pay their respects." Drake nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "That sounds like Jard," he said softly, a bittersweet smile tugging at his lips. He stayed for a few moments longer, lost in the memories of their childhood. Drake had left town for months after Jard's passing, his family relocating. But he always came back when life got too hard, when the world seemed too heavy. Being here with Jard was like coming home. Before leaving, Drake placed his hand on the headstone one last time. "Thanks for always being there," he whispered. Then, with a heavy heart but a lighter spirit, he turned and walked away, knowing that no matter how much time passed, Jard's memory would always be alive, not just in this town, but in him. Subscribe for a daily dose of uplifting short stories that warm your heart and brighten your day. Listen, enjoy, and let's spread positivity together.